Hello and welcome to the TribCast for Tuesday, September 2nd. I'm Eleanor Klibanoff, a law and politics reporter, joined as always by Matthew Watkins, editor-in-chief.
Hello.
It is 3 full months since Sine Die and the regular session version. We are still somehow doing the same thing. Although we should say we're recording this on Friday, and by the time this airs on Tuesday, who knows what could happen. Speaker Burrows said he would get everybody out of here by Labor Day. That does not seem to be happening.
Yeah. Well, and now no one cares because Taylor Swift's getting married.
Exactly. Yeah. The main priorities. The whole legislature shuts down.
Yeah.
Did you guys have a bet on who could talk about Taylor Swift first? That was like such a quick
Yeah, that was a
pivot.
really solid segue.
Well, this is all just a my attempt to hijack the podcast to talk about the phones in schools ban.
Yeah.
And how
is it going so far?
Well, I feel like the Taylor Swift engagement was the big test.
Yeah.
And my daughter, as I think we've maybe discussed before, goes to an all-girls school where this was just in place. And it took everything I had not to dispatch a reporter to the school on the day of the announcement to see, like, this is the true test of will the kids actually not have their phones in school. And I would like to report that my daughter found out in 7th period, but it was because a teacher told her.
Okay. Which is like how it should be.
Yes. And apparently this teacher said, I have really exciting news. And they were like, what? And she was like, it's really exciting. And they were like, what? And she was like, Taylor Swift's getting married. And my daughter went, yes! Very loudly in the middle of the class.
Wow.
And no one else apparently did
cared?
anything.
Wow.
So I think the kids have moved on to K-pop.
I don't think
hunters.
this is the right school for her. I'm just going to say it. As someone who has, a lot of input in where your daughter goes to school, this is not the right place.
It feels
for her.
like if there were any school that were, would be excited, it would be Ann Richards' all-girls school.
I like to think Ann Richards would have been excited for Taylor Swift. She was a girl power lady.
She was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no.
Yeah,
She kind of had like a country twang to her.
Yeah.
I could see Ann Richards in like a.
I could see Ann Richards going to the Eras tour,
wearing like a friendship bracelet.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, she would love that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to hear the cell phone. I mean, this is obviously so different, and like I shouldn't even bring these two things up in the same conversation. But like, I was in middle school when 9/11
I knew this is where you were going because when he said 7th period, I was like, that's where I was.
Yeah. And like a teacher.
Oh no, I couldn't have been.
Actually, my school like really mishandled it. They made an announcement that was like, teachers don't tell the students anything.
Yeah, that's how it was
Let
with
their
me
parents
too.
tell them.
And it was I grew up in New Jersey, so it was just like a slow drip of kids leaving school, and we didn't know why.
Yeah.
But Taylor Swift news feels announceable. Yeah.
And more positive.
Yeah.
And like no way a comparison whatsoever.
Nope. And just a hard transition. That voice you're hearing, as I assume,
Save us, Kate.
true fans of the Texas Tribune will know, our New Jersey girl, our Bruce Springsteen fan, and Taylor Swift fan, Kate McGee, investigative reporter.
Is
Hey,
Bruce
y'all.
Springsteen married?
Yes. His wife performs with him like on the
All right,
road.
sorry for not knowing that.
Kate's chances. Kate's like, no, I know. A generation of men ostensibly are sad that they can't marry Taylor Swift, and Kate is mad that she can't.
Bruce
I got
Springsteen's in his
over
80s. Is that true?
No, 70s.
Look it up.
Okay. Whatever. I had this conversation, funnily enough, with my daughter recently because we have this family playlist, and he's 75, and like in the car, so everyone stops shouting at each other about what music to list, and we all can add an equal number. And I have Backstreets from the Bruce Springsteen on that album, and my kids hate that song because it's like 8 minutes long, which is exactly why I put it on there. And they were like, "Is this song like from like the 50s?" And I was like, no, it's from the late 70s. And then I looked it up and I was like, wait, that means it's actually from 75, which means it's 50 years old, which is crazy.
Devastating.
It is.
Yeah.
I think actually it was like 50 years old last week. I think so we're really timely here.
Yeah. Well, we are none of this is what we're here to talk about, but we appreciate everyone sticking through that. What we are here to talk about is Kate's recent reporting on, honestly, one of the most interesting characters in Texas politics, which is Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller. Kate has been doing a series of stories looking at some allegations against Commissioner Miller, and just wanted to talk with her about Kate, maybe you can start us off. Tell us, like, who is Sid Miller, and entirely separately, what is an agriculture commissioner?
He's 6 years younger than Bruce Springsteen, by the way.
That's
Starts there.
actually
Really,
kind of
yeah.
shocking.
I mean, Bruce looks really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's enough.
So Sid Miller has been the agriculture commissioner since 2014, about 10 years. He was a state rep from 2000 to, I think he lost his election in 2012, and that's how he shifted over and ran for ag commissioner and has won 3 terms since. The agriculture commissioner is the person who oversees and regulates the agriculture industry in the state, everything from livestock, cattle to plants. They do like biosecurity, making sure people aren't bringing like quarantined plants or fruits or seeds or anything into the state that could harm the agriculture industry here. And he has been, as you said, a character, and had since he's been commissioner, he's come under fire in a variety of ways for some of his activity as commissioner. Really early in his tenure, he got hit with a few ethical scandals, one of which he was discovered to have used state money to travel to Oklahoma to get what was known as a Jesus shot, which was a shot that was claimed to take away all of your pain forever. He's also like a cattle roper and is really like involved in kind of the rodeo world. Outside of his work as ag commissioner. He eventually, I think, paid the state back for that trip, but has also gotten dinged for kind of ethical violations with the Ethics Commission and campaign finance reporting. And he made another trip to a rodeo in Mississippi and used some state money for that. And so he's kind of gotten dinged for all of these kind of ethical questions over the years. But has maintained, been able to be reelected. He has he was a strong MAGA Donald Trump supporter, really runs on his kind of bona fides and connections, and like really builds up his connections to Trump. And that's been successful for him every election.
One of the state's earliest and most enthusiastic Trump backers, right? And including, I believe, in 2024, did his sort of went out on his own with a bus tour of swing states, backing Trump, kind of, I think, self-funded, kind of independently making that push.
Yeah, and really, like, I mean, I think a lot of similarities between the two of them, right? In terms of, very bombastic, very sort of unapologetically themselves, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, he's followed Trump in the same kind of like strong social media presence. He's come under fire for like a variety of racist or homophobic things that he's posted on his social media pages, and has defended himself, and continues to kind of be inflammatory on social media, but it works for him, and it's very similar to kind of how we see Trump use social media as well.
He also, as agriculture commissioner, there's nothing to do with Sid Miller really, but he is the guy who had to handle the mysterious seed thing. Do you remember this? When seeds kept being mailed to people?
Oh yeah,
allegedly from China, and nobody really knew what that was about.
Yeah, I don't know I don't remember the
resolution of it, but I just remembered that. Anyway, I mean, obviously, like, a very important role in Texas, a heavily agriculture state. Like, we also are the state that, the U.S. Agriculture Secretary came from Texas. So a really important role.
And I will also say, like, not all states have elected agriculture commissioners. Some are appointed. So Texas is one that it's an elected role. So it's kind of plays a different role than other states, and other agencies in this state that are appointed.
So now let's talk about, like, sort of the other main character in your reporting, which is Todd Smith. who is Todd Smith in all of this?
So Todd Smith has been Sid Miller's political consultant since he first ran for the House 25 years ago. That's how they met. He worked on his campaign. Sid liked what he did and kept him along for the ride ever since, and has paid him as a consultant every year since. Todd Smith has also been like a prolific lobbyist. He's lobbied, especially in the early 2000s, was lobbying for all different kinds of statewide and national organizations here in Texas. Everything from like the American Cancer Society to like home health care companies to local cities like the city of Stephenville, where Sid Miller's from. Todd Smith was their lobbyist, and also, which kind of becomes more relevant later on, he was lobbying for hemp farmers as well in like around 2020 when the legalization of hemp farming happened in Texas. And so he's just kind of remained a person in the Capitol for the last 2 decades.
So, and he's lobbying for hemp farmers. The Agriculture Commissioner oversees, it sort of walks through 2020, hemp farming sort of becomes...
Yeah, 2019. 2018, federally, the federal government legalizes hemp farming. 2019, Texas follows suit, legalizes the industrial hemp and like hemp-related products or extracts like CBD oil if it's under 0.3% THC.
The idea being farmers in Texas need a new cash crop. This will help the struggling agriculture industry and everything like that.
Yeah.
And it went amazing and we never looked back. There's been
Totally.
no regrets at all.
Podcast over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so yeah.
And so because the Agriculture Department oversees farming, they were the agency that was tasked with kind of planning out like how they were going to regulate this new crop and this new, avenue for farmers. And so the state or the legislature said when they legalized it that there would be, an unlimited amount of hemp licenses that farmers could get. They would be $100 each. And, Sid Miller's department was tasked with figuring out how to do kind of like the day-to-day paperwork minutia of regulation of this new industry.
And then much like the high school senior who sells an elevator pass to a high school freshman, Todd Smith starts allegedly sort of trying to make money off of these licenses. Is that the allegation?
Yes. So, and this never went to court because he eventually pleaded guilty to commercial bribery and settled last year. But he was accused of he and another man were accused of going to hemp farmers or people who were interested in investing in the hemp industry and soliciting money from them, a variety of money. Some people said they were asked to pay like $25,000 because he was saying there was going to be a limited amount of hemp licenses, and if people gave this money, they would get to the front of the line. And so they started, asking people for checks. People started giving this money to him or the other individual involved, and they were also soliciting money, saying that they needed money to conduct a survey of Texans' like opinions about hemp, to be able to convince lawmakers to support this industry, et cetera, et cetera. The arrest affidavit eventually, when Todd Smith was arrested, found that he took money from people and then the surveys were never conducted.
And the idea here is, in reality, a license to grow hemp in Texas costs
$100.
And he was charging
$25,000
for something that people didn't need.
And like little did he know, in 5 years we'd have lots of surveys on how people feel about hemp because it's all we can talk about. So at this point, Commissioner Miller is not implicated in any of this, right? The allegation is that his political consultant is sort of doing this allegedly unrelated to him, but, using sort of the power of that office.
Correct.
it's worth noting the timing of his guilty plea, though. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. And I will say before we get into the like, there were, when you read the investigative files from DPS, there and the arrest affidavit, like he was using the power of the office, but there was also allegations made that he was like taking this, like the seal of the office letterhead and then using that to print letters that he was sending to kind of give his scheme some like legitimacy. So
right. It's not like you or me trying to do this where people would be like, you don't have access to these hemp licenses, right? It's like, he's...
Right, and yeah, exactly. And so he gets arrested and indicted for fraud and commercial bribery. The case, is making its way. The Travis County DA's office is prosecuting, and it was set for trial in late October of last year. A few weeks before, Sid Miller was subpoenaed to testify in the trial, and a week later, Todd Smith, who had previously pled not guilty, pleaded guilty to commercial bribery, with a deferred adjudication of about 2 years and a 1 year freeze on being able to lobby in the state. And he did not plead guilty to the fraud charge.
Like the implication of that timing being that they didn't want Sid Miller to have to be deposed.
That is, I think, people's understanding.
Okay, that's the connection some people are drawing between A and B.
Yes.
Gotcha. So then, as I would presume, Todd Smith, chagrined, chased out of state government, not allowed to return.
Yeah, I mean, previously when this all happened and Todd Smith was arrested, Sid Miller separated himself and distanced himself from Todd Smith, said he had stopped using him as a political consultant, was really trying to create distance. And then, October, he pleads guilty. And then a few months later, in January of this year, Sid Miller hires Todd Smith to be the chief of staff for his executive office in the Department of Agriculture. Todd Smith had never been employed by the Department of Agriculture before. He was just his political consultant, but now he is serving as Sid Miller's political consultant and the chief of staff for this agency, shocking a lot of people who were confused and frustrated that Sid Miller would bring this guy who had pleaded guilty to essentially, defrauding the agency, now as the chief of staff.
Basically, to repeat that, someone who, while not working for the agency, but working for the head of the agency, pleaded guilty to essentially an illegal scheme to sell licenses that he didn't have a right to license from the Department of Agriculture, pled guilty, and then was later hired by the agency to be essentially if not second in command, at least a very high-ranking person who, has a lot of control over access to the elected official and presumably a lot of control over the operations of the agency.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like he's second or third in command. There's Sid Miller, then there's a deputy commissioner, and then Todd is really overseeing increasingly a lot of departments within the agriculture agency.
And I mean, your reporting has shown that, even before he was hired, people raised a lot of concerns about sort of Todd Smith's influence on the agency. What has your reporting shown about what the concerns are around him?
Yeah, so our first story that we did, and why it's kind of important to know the backstory of the Todd Smith case, is that once that case closed with DPS, all those documents and investigative files became public. And so we requested the investigative file, and that's how we learned of a variety of other allegations that were made by against Sid Miller in the course of this investigation to DPS about Sid Miller, not related to Todd Smith's bribery case, but related to Sid Miller's hemp farm and his activity that he was doing. And so we, in those documents, and we got those the written police files and recordings of interviews that DPS did with all of these. Some of them were, at the time they were employees, high-level employees in the Department of Agriculture. Many of them are now former employees. We can get into that later, and friends of Sid Miller's who never worked for the agency, but were really close with Sid over the years.
basically in the course of investigating these allegations against Todd Smith, which eventually did end up with an indictment and a guilty plea, other people started bringing up other stuff that
Right.
has not generated any sort of criminal
Correct. DPS
action.
said, even as I asked them recently, they said they are not investigating any of the further claims that had been made. But so what happened was, in the Todd Smith investigation, there were multiple claims made about Sid Miller's hemp farm. So Sid Miller, is regulating the agency, regulating the hemp industry as part of the Department of Agriculture, and is also one of the people who got a hemp license and started growing hemp, which is legal.
Sure.
And his employees alleged the following. One was a man, Freddie Vest, who no longer works for the department. He said that he was told by an employee came up to him at the ag department and said that they had gotten an email from the Drug Enforcement Administration saying that they were requesting information into Sid Miller's hemp farm. Freddie Vest was a friend of Sid Miller's, had worked for the Department of Agriculture since Sid became the commissioner in 2014. He went and told Sid Miller and said, hey, the DEA is asking questions about your hemp farm. The DEA was upset. Sid Miller was upset, got nervous, upset with Freddie for even telling him about this. But Freddie Vest, in the course of this investigation, tells the DPS about this. Separately, another person, Michael Hackney, who was a longtime friend of Sid Miller's, a cattle roper. They were very close. He was living on Sid Miller's property in his motorhome for a period of years. He was interviewed by DPS and told them that later that year, this is all happening in 2022, later that year, Sid Miller showed up at his motorhome one night with 3 bags of marijuana gummies and rolled joints, and asked him to get rid of this product because the DEA was looking into his farm and they couldn't find this stuff on his property. All of this, is reported. There's some question of whether Travis County DA was even informed of Michael Hackney's interview. There's some back and forth there but it never makes it into any of the case with Todd Smith because it's irrelevant to that case.
And Miller denies all of this.
He flatly denies. He did say that Freddie Vest told him the DEA was looking into his hemp farm, but said he checked it out and it was not there was nothing to it. The DEA told us that they could not confirm or deny any investigation into anything, and they routinely do not confirm any investigation unless it's been fully adjudicated by the courts. But he says, and he told me, if I were to do that, if I were to had product I needed to get rid of, I would have done it myself. Why would I have asked someone else to get rid of it for me? That was his defense when we asked him about it. But yeah.
And also, I think a great quote, which is, Freddie is a damn drama queen.
Yeah.
Which, he's got a way with words.
But then subsequently, what was alleged, the Todd Smith case is settled. He pleads guilty. He gets hired in January. In May of this year, Freddie is still working at the Department of Agriculture, and he and others are getting increasingly concerned about Todd Smith's presence, something that they have, that DPS interviews during the Todd Smith investigation found repeatedly over and over that people were raising concerns with Todd Smith's presence at the TDA even before he was hired, that people were told, don't take one-on-one meetings with him. People were saying that they would refuse to go to meetings with Todd Smith because they were concerned about his involvement. Freddie Vest tells some of this to Sid Miller in May of this year, saying, we're concerned about Todd's presence. In the course of this conversation, Freddie Vest tells Sid Miller that there are people out there who have illicit photos of Sid Miller, and that there are people don't want Todd Smith around, and that Freddie is concerned that they might make these photos public or turn against Sid Miller. Sid Miller takes this as blackmail and thinks that Freddie is saying you need to get rid of Todd Smith or people are going to release photos. He fires Freddie and reports him to DPS saying that he's been for coercing a public official. In the course of that investigation, Freddie then shares additional information about Sid Miller's hemp activity. You can tell that this is extremely messy.
And to be clear, DPS does not pursue charges against Freddie, right?
Correct. They investigated and closed the case and did not charge him with any crimes.
DPS also said he's just a damn drama queen.
Yeah.
Their official finding.
It does seem to me like there's two possibilities here. One being these folks are telling the truth about Sid Miller, and Sid Miller has gotten tangled up in a lot of very questionable activities. Two is Sid Miller hired a bunch of liars and drama queens, and also someone who pled guilty to bribery, and that calls into question some of the decision making of who he's bringing into his agency.
Yeah, and he dismisses everything that people have said these former employees have said as disgruntled former employees. The other accusation that came out in this conversation, once DPS started investigating this bribery accusation, Freddie told them about another former employee at the Department of Agriculture. His name is Walt Roberts. Walt is also a character. He's been at the department since 2014. He's also a world-class fiddler and an actor, and was in the second season of Mo. I don't know if you saw that show on Netflix. So he's got his hands in different, he's a Renaissance man.
The Taylor Swift of the agriculture department.
Yeah. But he said that Walt had told him about a time also in 2022 where Walt went to Bastrop with Sid Miller, and Sid Miller was bringing a bunch of bags of his harvested hemp, and that he exchanged it for these little black tubes that had these rolled joints in them. And the accusation that was made was that Sid was exchanging his hemp for taking his hemp there. They were spraying it with synthetic THC and then giving it back to Sid. That was the accusation.
Which is illegal.
Illegal.
Okay.
So spraying it with enough THC that it was going above the 0.3 threshold. Sid Miller also denies this. He denied that he ever sold hemp in Bastrop at all. But Walt Roberts, we reached out to Walt Roberts. He didn't want to talk for this story, but he did confirm Freddie's accounting to DPS and said that he was very uncomfortable with the whole situation. But again, it was just raising additional questions and allegations about what Sid was doing with his hemp that he had harvested.
Right. And again, sort of to your point, Matthew, either all of these people are cooking up very, very elaborate lies about their boss or
former
boss, or,
to state police,
right. Or potentially Commissioner Miller is involved in some all of this feels like sort of playing at the edges of a thing that, they are really debating at the Capitol, right? Which is how should we regulate hemp and THC, and where should the limits be? And it's a relatively new industry here, and but certainly playing at the edges of legality.
So you've written, a couple stories about this with a lot of the revelations that you just described. What has the reaction been among Sid Miller's colleagues and fellow statewide leaders in the Republican Party?
Sid's colleagues have been relatively silent, to be honest. From my understanding, is they have been told not to talk to the media, and so there's been a lot of silence from the department. I mean, I think the people involved in the story, anyway, so that's been kind of the major reaction. I feel a lot of the same from the Republican Party, to be honest. There's been some criticism on social media. But I haven't seen. There's been no like defense of Sid at this point, and from public statements from lawmakers.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about like I think people see these stories go up on our website or like a lot of news websites, and it's like, and certainly I don't know that we've heard this from Commissioner Miller, but like we're certainly in an era where I think people are very quick to dismiss sort of investigative reporting or these kind of findings. Can you talk a little bit about like what it takes to get a story like this? We're not just like saying like some guy told us this and we're putting it up on the internet, right?
Right. I mean, these were all everything that we reported on for the most part that was in both of the stories, especially the first one, which was about Sid Miller, the allegations about Miller's activity with his hemp farm. Are allegations made in public records. I mean, we put in multiple open records requests to DPS for these investigative files for the interviews that they conducted. And this story is simply laying out what those allegations are for people to decide for themselves, what they think right now. I mean, Sid Miller denies all of it. But these were people who were approached by DPS and asked questions, and interviewed. That's also a thing to note. They were not, I think we saw with like Ken Paxton, like his and the whistleblower trial, like the whistleblowers went to the FBI. Like these people did not go out of their way to report Sid Miller. This was information they shared when they were asked by DPS to be interviewed. It was a lot of reading through hundreds of pages of files, listening to these audio interviews, reaching out to the people who were interviewed in the story, whether they wanted to elaborate or, corroborate what was kind of said in these investigative files and police reports, making sure that DPS was summarizing the conversation accurately. A lot of people did not want to talk on the record. So we really relied a lot on what they said in those actual interviews. Then it was going to Sid Miller, laying out the claims that were in these documents, giving him a chance to respond to every single accusation. We're continuing to file open records requests with the TDA to continue reporting on this story.
Great, yeah. Any other burning Sid Miller questions?
I guess sort of an observation. It's interesting to watch this play out, right? I mean, the silence among elected officials is curious, right? I mean, on the one hand, maybe it's not surprising to see fellow Republicans sort of not go after members of their own party and members of their own actions, and the silence and lack of defense could possibly be read as not really wanting to be associated with or back, but also not, wanting to stick their neck out and everything like that. It's also just kind of an interesting situation because, right, I mean, we're in the middle of this conversation about like how harmful is THC, how harmful is marijuana, like is this really a bad thing? Should we be allowing people to buy it and all those types of stuff? At the same time, it's the Agriculture Department's job to be, in some ways, putting up some guardrails and making sure that this is happening ethically and, all above board, and raising questions about whether the Agriculture Commissioner himself is involved with that. So I don't know. I mean, on the other hand, we're not that far off from the impeachment of the Attorney General, right? There has been a willingness in the past for Republicans to go after Republicans in this way. And so it's just been curious to me to watch the silence here and try to understand what that means.
Yeah. I agree.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, we also, just to add on to that, he's heading into a re-election next year. He has an opponent who's raised, like, I think in the July reporting filing, he had raised like $400,000 to Sid Miller's $70,000. Like Sid has not raised a ton of money, and maybe that will change as things go. I remember his last election too. He, there were some state lawmakers then who stayed out of the race in terms of endorsing a candidate. So we'll see if that is repeated this time, or if people decide to publicly back him. But I think what happens in the next few months will be interesting, and next year will be interesting as we watch the campaign rollout.
Yeah, I mean, and there's certainly a case in, the Republican primary electorate where folks are willing to look past ethical violations or concerns about how they run their office if they view you as a warrior for their side, right? Against, concerns about, how liberals or even in some cases moderate establishment Republicans are running the state. If you are willing to go after them or you are willing to fight on behalf of those frustrations, they'll look past a lot. And Sid Miller is definitely willing to fight and willing to kind of take that stance and that MAGA approach to government. So it'll be interesting to watch.
Which is especially notable considering the role the Agriculture Commissioner plays on the front lines of the culture wars. But certainly I think he has made his name that way for sure. Kate, thank you so much for joining us. We'll look forward to the rest of your reporting, but you can find it all at texastribune.org. Matthew, thank you as always. Our producers are Rob and Chris. You can find the TribCast anywhere you get your podcasts or on YouTube, and we will see you next week.